Back on December 20th of 2011, the Ohio State football program received a one-year bowl ban due to players receiving improper benefits. This led to the firing of longtime head coach Jim Tressel, who won a national title at Ohio State. It left a hole that needed to be filled, and the person that got to fill it was no one other than Urban Meyer, who was just a couple years removed from 2 national titles at Florida, led by the likes of Tim Tebow and Percy Harvin, and a great Florida defense. Now, Urban knew he had to put together a great coaching staff at Ohio State, which is why he kept defensive coordinator Luke Fickell, who is now Wisconsin's head coach. He hired Tom Herman, who is now FAU's head coach, and he hired Mike Vrabel, who is now the Tennessee Titans head coach and one of the best head coaches in the NFL. On offense, this team had Braxton Miller as the starting quarterback. Funny enough, his backup quarterback ended up being Cardale Jones, and at running back, they had Carlos Hyde, who this season rushed for 970 yards, and he went on to have a long career in the NFL. Now, this defense was led by Ryan Shazier, who had 115 tackles this season, including 4 forced fumbles, which was number 1 in the Big Ten, and including 17 tackles for loss, which was also number 1 in the Big Ten. And he was number 2 in solo tackles in the Big Ten. And total tackles, he ranked number 3. Now, they also had Bradley Roby on defense at defensive back, who led the team with 2 interceptions, including a pick 6. And on defensive line, they had Jonathan Hankins, who earned first team All Big Ten honors this season. Ohio State this season also had some quality wins, beating 3 ranked teams. They had some close games. Their 2 best games came against Nebraska and Michigan. And man, that Nebraska team was very good. That Michigan team is very good. Don't get fooled by that Michigan State game though. Michigan State that season went 6-6, and they struggled mildly throughout that season. Well, they went 7-6 because they won a bowl game. Don't let that Nebraska score for you though. Nebraska was up 17-7 at one point during that game until Ohio State routed off 14 straight, and then Ohio State kind of kept them at bay. If I'm not mistaken, Nebraska took the lead at one point during that game again, but it was around the time of the second quarter, third quarter, where Nebraska just couldn't do anything with Ohio State. Ohio State kind of just pulled away, and they ended up winning the game and scoring 63 points. And the score looks way worse than what the game would tell you. But that Nebraska team was good. That team ended up going to the Big Ten championship. It ended up being undefeated until they played Ohio State, and then after that, they end up going on a streak again until they lost to Wisconsin. Then after that, they dropped the bowl game to Georgia. But that team was still very good. Now, I have to talk about the Michigan-Ohio State game, of course. Michigan at halftime was up 21-20, but sadly, they could not score a single point in the second half. Ohio State just scored 6 points in the second half. Their offense stalled out Michigan's offense, and this was the beginning of Ohio State's dominance against Michigan up until 2021. Now, if the Buckeyes didn't receive that bowl ban, they would have ended up playing Wisconsin, led by Monty Ball, in the Big Ten championship game, in which they probably would have ended up beating them because Wisconsin that year kind of struggled. At the end of the season, Braxton Miller was named first team All Big Ten, and he was named Big Ten Player of the Year and Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year. And he entered the season 5th in Heisman voting, throwing for 2,000 yards and 15 touchdowns and only 6 interceptions. Sometimes some people forget how good of a quarterback he was before he had to change to a wide receiver. Now, I don't think this Ohio State team will be able to beat the Alabama team that blew out Notre Dame 42-14, just because Alabama had a lot more firepower on offense and they had a better defense. But I do think they will be able to put up a better matchup. Even though I don't think they would have won the national championship, I do think this team is forgotten about in the world of college football and by many college football fans.